Can India really become the world's next big manufacturing powerhouse? Now, that's the big question. For the next 5 to 7 minutes, I'm going to discuss with you what are the things that we need to do more? What is the present status right now? So, you see, on the surface, it looks like we're getting there, especially with this trade tariff war that is going on. India is essentially positioned now to become the next manufacturing powerhouse after China. But then for this, we really have to play our bets well. Thanks to efforts like Make in India and more recently the PLI scheme, the Production Linked Incentive Scheme, we have started seeing some real wins. By March 2024, PLI alone pulled in investments worth 1.61 lakh crore. This is around $19 billion. So it helped generate over 14 lakh crore in production and sales and created more than 11.5 lakh jobs. So this sounds great, right? But let's pause for a second. If we dig a little deeper, there's a problem lurking beneath all this success. In sector after sector, India assembles products. But when it comes to the critical parts, we still import them. Whether it's smartphones, electric cars, solar panels, or even defense equipment, key components are mostly shipped in from abroad. And this makes us vulnerable to global supply shocks, trade wars, and political tensions. More importantly, it means we aren't creating as much real value as we could. So let's break this down with some quick examples of different sectors. Let's start with electronics. Yes, we have become the world's second largest mobile phone manufacturer by volume. But guess what? 75 to 80% of the critical parts, of the crucial parts, say chips, display panels, camera modules, these are all imported, mainly from China, Vietnam, and South Korea. Let's talk of electric vehicles. Sales are booming. Over 1.5 million EVs were sold last year. But the battery cells, which make up almost half of the cost of an EV, those battery cells are still mostly imported. Solar energy. We are aiming for 500 gigawatts of renewable energy by 2030. Yet, around 80% of our solar module components come from China. Defense. Even with Make in India for defense, we are still among the top 3 arms importers worldwide. So the question is, why does this happen? Because we mostly do assembly work, not value-added manufacturing. We don't yet control the full supply chain, and this is something we need to change. So how did China do it? Let me rewind to the 1980s and 90s. China back then was pretty much where India is today, assembling low-end goods for Western brands. But then they played it smart. They played the long game. They invested $4 trillion into roads, ports, power grids, and industrial parks. They created millions of skilled factory workers through vocational schools. They built industrial clusters. For example, Shenzhen became the electronics hubs for the world. They secured control over critical raw materials like rare earths. They made foreign companies share technology in exchange for market access. And the result? Today, China owns large parts of the world's end-to-end supply chains. So what can India learn from this? You see, we really don't have to copy China exactly. That's really not the point. But there are some clear lessons to be learned. To start with, we have to think about end-to-end supply chain. We have to support local component manufacturing and not just about final assembly. We have to lower our logistics cost. Yes, over the past few years, we have done some good work in that, but still, India's logistic cost is still around 14 to 18% of GDP, and that's pretty high. We have to build sector-specific clusters. For example, Tamil Nadu can be a hub for electronics and EVs. Similarly, Hyderabad can be a hub for some other component. UP can be a hub for some other component. But we have to think of sector-specific clusters. And then we have to simplify our regulations and labor laws. In India, one of the big problems is law enforcement and the myriad of this difficult regulation that companies have to maneuver through. We have to make it easier for businesses to operate in India. There should be clear regulations, and the regulations should not differ from state to state. That's another big problem that we face in India. And then finally, we have to develop a skilled workforce, especially for future industries like EVs, semiconductors, green energy. But there's some good news. It's already started. India and Indian companies have already started to realize the problem that you're facing. We have already started to think of end-to-end manufacturing. For example, Hindalco is making aluminium battery enclosures for Mahindra EVs. Tata Electronics is investing 13,000 crore in precision manufacturing. Micron is setting up a $2.75 billion semiconductor assembly plant in Gujarat. Vedanta Foxconn has announced a semiconductor facility, though it's still facing hurdles. So Indian companies are beginning to think beyond assembly. They are starting to think more about owning the supply chain. But this is something we have to remember. This is a long race. We have to stay the course. There will be a lot of hurdles along the way, but we have to stay the course. We have to be very focused and essentially think of end-to-end supply chains. That's the only way we can become the next manufacturing hub and will be able to bring a lot of business from China, because the world is looking to diversify, and it's high time we put our cards together, we play our bets well, and trust me, we really have a good chance this time.